Hey guys, what's up? It's JR Cuber, and welcome to my full comparison of the Cong's design YueYing and the Cong's design MeiYing. So the YueYing and the MeiYing are the two latest cubes in the Ying series and the two official Cong's design cubes. If you've seen my reviews on these cubes, then you'll know that they are very similar, but how exactly are they different, and how do they compare? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Now, first things first, I just want to quickly mention the price of these cubes. The YueYing is $15 from the cubicle, and the MeiYing is $16 from the cubicle as well, so not much of a difference in price. Now, I'm going to be splitting up this comparison into 5 sections: turning, corner cutting, locking, corner twisting, and overall performance. Now, some of you might be wondering why I didn't include popping in that list, but really, what cube pops these days anyway? Each cube will receive a score out of 10 at the end of every round. If it's a tie, both cubes will receive the same score. And then we'll compare the scores at the end to see who the winner is. So, let's get started. The turning of the YueYing can be most easily described as crispy and controllable. It's very loud and definitely sounds pretty cheap, but the plastic is actually quite strong and it has a very sturdy feel. The cube is definitely not the fastest cube out there, but there are a lot of people who will definitely appreciate that. The MeiYing is almost a completely different story. While the YueYing takes more off of the Liying, the MeiYing takes more off of the Gans 356, which are completely different cubes. The MeiYing is light and airy with more of a bumpy than crispy feel. It's also much faster than the YueYing and takes some control. So for turning, the YueYing gets a 7 out of 10, while the MeiYing gets an 8 out of 10. So moving on to corner cutting, there's not much to say here. Both cubes can cut at the same angles, which is just over 45 for regular corner cutting and right around 3/4 reverse, and it doesn't really take any more effort on either cube. So corner cutting is a tie. Both cubes get a 10 out of 10. Locking is a bit of an interesting topic because it can be a different experience for everyone, so I'll just tell you mine. The YueYing for me generally doesn't lock up, and while it has the same squared off corners that the MeiYing has, it's more due to the cuts of the edges and the centers. Imagine the YueYing corners were rounded normally. The cuts would look like a perfect diamond. If the corners were rounded normally on the MeiYing, it would be an off-centered diamond. The perfect diamond allows for fluid algorithms and minimal locking despite the squared off corners, and the off-center diamond will lock up regardless of the corners, and squaring them off just makes it worse. So for me, the YueYing is much more fluid than the MeiYing, which gives me small catches that ruin the fluidity of algorithms. So for lockups, the YueYing gets a 10 out of 10, and the MeiYing gets an 8 out of 10. The main purpose we started getting squared off corners on cubes was to prevent corner twisting, which can be one of the most frustrating parts of a cube. So how effective is it? Well, actually, extremely effective. Neither the YueYing or the MeiYing have corner twisted once, so this round is also a tie. Both cubes receive a 10 out of 10. So moving on to our last category, overall performance. The YueYing for me is an all-round okay cube. There's nothing that it does particularly well and nothing that it does particularly bad. My only problem with the cube is the slowness, but that really comes down to how you set it up. Oh yeah, that and the fact that this cube is basically identical to the Liying, which makes this cube pretty pointless for me. The MeiYing is a similar story. The cube is a good performer, minus the small catching, which really bugs me. This cube, in my opinion, was meant to take everything good with the YueYing and everything good with the Gans 356 and make a new cube out of it. It's just that the MeiYing doesn't really bring anything new to the table, and so for me, this cube is also a pretty pointless cube. So for overall performance, the YueYing gets an 8 out of 10, and the MeiYing gets a 7 out of 10. So we've gone through all our sections, so let's compare scores, and then I'll tell you my personal pick between these cubes. So out of the maximum 50 points each cube could receive, the YueYing gets a 45 out of 50, and the MeiYing gets a 43 out of 50. So the winner here is the YueYing. So now for my personal recommendations. I personally would not recommend either of these cubes. Neither cube presents anything new, and they are pretty similar in a lot of ways, but personally, I actually prefer the MeiYing, but just barely. I personally can't handle the slowness of the YueYing, and while the small catches of the MeiYing are really annoying, I'll take the speed over the fluidity in this case. So that about wraps up this comparison. Let me know in the comments below what you thought and what I can do to improve these comparison videos, since this is the first one I've ever done. Also, let me know what 2 cubes I should compare next. So if you like this video, give it a like. If you haven't already done so, like my Facebook page, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and of course subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.